I've always felt that the notions, the security principles around confidentiality, integrity are always sort of a little bit at odds with availability. As you talked a little bit about adding security features on top of BGP, it would protect against the fat finger kind of scenario, but it increases the risk that perhaps a signature isn't accepted, and consequently the routes aren't accepted, and it may make portions of the internet completely unreachable as a result of that. So that's a balance between, do you really want to add better integrity, or do you really want to add or do what you can to preserve the availability?
And of course, in that situation, if you're moving to some sort of signed system, there's a transition period, a fairly long one, and there's a time where you have to say, where each ISP has to decide, well, this route isn't signed. Do I trust it or not? At the beginning, you almost have to trust it because there's not that much signing going on. Eventually, if a lot of people are signing, maybe you start saying, I'm not going to trust that signed route. If I have some other route, I'm going to use it, even though it may not seem to be as good. And eventually, you may just stop trusting unsigned routes completely.
Right.
But
at least you have the option.
Yeah.
Choices are good.
Yeah.
So, as an end user, as somebody that's subscribing to network services, I'm going to narrow this down to network services. What do you recommend that folks do?
Well, I mean, you can, obviously, if you use certificates of your own on your website, then even if somebody misdirects the traffic and it goes somewhere else, they don't have your certificate, so you shouldn't be able to, it shouldn't be identified as you when you actually get there.
So at least
that's the sort of thing,
layer of protection to prevent that sort of thing.
So the sorts of things you do just to make sure you're talking to the right site would help protect you against route hijacking. At least it would help you protect you in the sense that people wouldn't think they were connected to you. They might not be able to get to you. They couldn't get to the legitimate site, but at least they wouldn't go to the illegitimate site and treat it as though it were you.
Yeah. Well, and then if the concern here is that stuff gets routed through an ISP that you don't trust, perhaps, at least it provides the encryption to be able to protect against somebody sniffing in on the traffic and seeing what you're doing. So there's a level of protection at that level, from that point of view. What are your thoughts about, if you don't trust the internet, what about going to an ISP that you trust and subscribing to some private network services?
You can do that. I mean, VPNs are a big market. We have a lot of customers on our VPN service for just that reason. They don't want that traffic crossing the internet. But if you're a large vendor and you want to talk to the maximum number of customers, you've pretty well got to be on the internet. You can't invite them all to come into your VPN in order to get to you. So you've got, at some point, you just sort of have to, for your public sites, you have to be using the internet right now.
Absolutely true. So if you're making something that's publicly accessible, you have to go to the internet.
Yeah.
If you're really just conducting business to perhaps third parties, somebody that you're partnering with or within your own organization, you have the option of choosing an ISP and using a virtual private networking solution.
And that's what most major companies do. Certainly we do, and a lot of our major customers do. They have a VPN for their internal use, but still they have a public website and it's on the internet because that's how they talk to their customers.
Right. So for the public facing, does subscribing to multiple service providers help?
Well, it may help a bit. I mean, it may help for some reliability reasons, but it won't keep your route from being hijacked.
Won't necessarily keep the route from being hijacked, but it could potentially inject paths for more directions and make it a little more difficult to get that sort of segmented point of view, I think.
Yeah.
I'm conjecturing a little bit here.
But remember, I mean, it depends a bit what you're talking about. If you're talking about, you're in the US, for instance, there are a number of major carriers that you can sign up with for your internet service. But are you going to sign up with a carrier from Hong Kong because you want to make sure that customers in that part of the world get to you directly? Or are you going to sign up with a carrier from Germany or England or France? Or are you kind of leaving that to your internet provider to deal with the internet and make sure that you can be reached from all over the world? If you're worried enough about this and you're a big enough company, you might start investing in extension cords to places like Hong Kong and Germany and England and France, but that's not practical for a lot of customers. Medium to small companies, it's not practical at all.
All right, good point. All right.